All right, testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3. I see we have several people on. Can you guys hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Excellent, excellent. All right, good. We have a couple minutes, so I just wanted to do a quick mic check. I'll be right back. All right, all right. I'm your host, Cy Smith. I'm coming to you on a Friday. Every Friday is Love Our Senior Citizens Day. It's the beginning of a new year. So we're doing something different in the political arena, meaning we're going to have a primary in the summertime. So this is going to be very, very interesting in Chicago, Illinois. Today being political day for us, we're going to be honored to have two ladies on here to talk about their vision for the first congressional seat. So I want to make certain that I put out there is streaming on YouTube. It will be on YouTube afterwards as well, so you guys will be able to share this video with others. I want to put out there why it matters. Like timing wise, and then at the end we're going to open up and or questions to so let me just check and make sure both on.
Brother Smith, we are having trouble with your sound.
That is not good. Can you hear me now, or is it just real slow?
It's pretty slow. It might be internet connection.
Yeah, I'm in the basement, so it might be it. So, and it's too cold to be outside. So, but the main thing is they're gonna hear from you guys, not me as much. Cassandra, are you on? Do we have Cassandra on yet?
Yes, we do. Good afternoon.
Awesome, awesome. So let me just first say this to everyone that's watching, people that will tune in later and watch this video. And I hope I'm gonna talk slower, so maybe the speed it'll allow it to sound better or clearer. But I am honored to introduce to you guys two people who I have respect for and I believe would be outstanding when it comes to representing the first congressional district in any political position. And so to you guys, it's always your choice. It's what you decide to do. The power is always in your hands. I believe that we as Black people in particular need to make certain that we don't let any machine or anyone tell us who and what to vote for. So I want you to prepare your questions for these ladies. We're gonna go through introductions. I'm gonna talk about some things that I believe and hear from both our candidates. Then toward the third, I'll open it up for you guys to give me your questions. You can text my wife or you can just chime in on here, and we'll let you ask directly your question, and then we'll get the answer. And again, it's recorded, so you'll be able to go back and review it later, send it to family and friends, all that good stuff. So having said that, let me begin with, let's go by alphabetical order. Let's go elementary here. So we'll start with you, Cassandra. Can you tell us who are you? And then what is it that you think needs to be different in the 1st Congressional District? Then we go over to Stephanie. She'll introduce herself and say what she want to see different. And then I got the 7 daily living habit questions that I want to go through, dealing with family, safety, senior citizens, youth, all that good stuff. So you have the floor.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for inviting Stephanie and myself out this afternoon and providing this platform for our community, as you always do. So we are appreciative for that. My name is Attorney Cassandra Goodrum, and I have lived here in Chicago since I was 4 years old. So I grew up right on the South Side, went to Bryn Mawr Elementary School, which is now Boucher, and followed that up with going to Unity right in Chatham. I graduated from DePaul University with my undergraduate degree and followed that up with a law degree at Northwestern University. And if that's not born and bred right here, I don't know what else is. I have lived, as I indicated, right here in this 1st Congressional District most of my adult life. And I have looked at how changes have occurred throughout my community. And at this point in time, I am just at a point where I want to be the change that we want to see in the world. And we tell our children that all the time. And sometimes we just have to step up and make sure that we are able to be that change that we're looking for in the world. And you asked what I see wrong in the 1st Congressional District, and I'm sure I see the same thing that everyone else sees. But for my campaign, we're not going to be talking about violence. We're going to talk about educating, engaging, and empowering the electorate right here in this 1st Congressional District. And we're going to not just engage, educate, and empower them, but we're going to engage, educate, and empower the 1st Congressional District for peace. What is peace? A sense of security in your community, right? And how do we get that? We make sure that we have adequate education, and I mean adequate as in the curriculum, as well as the funding has been provided so that we can make sure that our children are getting the educations that they need. What else provides peace? Making sure that there are adequate job opportunities, entrepreneurial opportunities, resources that we can bring back to our community that may or may not include green jobs that can be created here, right in the 1st Congressional District. And finally, I am standing on a platform for reparations for our community, because 1619 was a long time ago. That's all I can tell you. And our people, our country has been built on the backs of our people for its entire existence. And many other ethnicities have been paid reparations. And I stand strong on the ground that we are now due those reparations. So that's just a little bit about my platform and a little bit about me. I did work at the Cook County State's Attorney's Office following graduation. And then I went into private practice. And for the last 10 years, I've been teaching at Chicago State University. So I didn't just stop by.
No, I appreciate that. Excellent. All right, good. Everyone hold your questions toward the 30-minute mark at 3:35 to be exact. We'll bring you on with questions. So let's go over to our next superstar, Stephanie Rose. You have the floor.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for allowing us both this opportunity. Cassandra, it is a pleasure to meet you. And I just want to say, first and foremost, thank you for stepping up and saying yes. I say that because data demonstrates and tells us that it takes almost 7 times to ask a woman to run for any position. And so the fact that you are saying yes to this work reveals to us that you are committed to community. And I want to lift that up and celebrate you in that. I am Reverend Dr. Stephanie Rose Spalding. I was born in Little Company of Mary Hospital, went to Metcalf Elementary in West Pullman, graduated high school, middle school and high school from Morgan Park High School, and have lived in this community. My family is multi-generational in the 1st Congressional District, and spanning many of the areas from Auburn Gresham, Inglewood, Chatham, to Roseland, West Pullman, even all the way out to New Lenox, right? So again, very much familiar with how this district has just changed, I will say, over the decades of my life and being connected here. I was blessed to attend Clark Atlanta University on scholarship because both of my parents were very much working class individuals. My father started off as literally brown collar labor as a UPS employee and worked his way through UPS, as well as going back to school non-traditionally with 5 children and working every day. So I witnessed my parents doing that.
I'm sorry, Stephanie. Can everyone mute their phone except the speaker? Everyone mute their phone except Stephanie.
My mother started in pink collar labor. She was a secretary. They didn't call it an administrative assistant or an executive assistant at the time. She was a secretary who also was a non-traditional student and with children, and all went back to school. I think Brother Arnold is trying to share with us.
I'm logged out, so I'm about to mute everyone. So if you don't mind, just keep going.
Okay. So I appreciate the history of work ethic that my family taught me and the commitment to education. Graduating from Clark Atlanta, I then went on to Purdue University to earn a doctoral degree. And that at the time was not one of the easiest things to do. It's still not one of the easiest things to do when we look at our community and the opportunities as it relates to education. From there, I went on to a tenure track position in South Carolina. So I returned to an HBCU first to begin my teaching at Claflin University, and then went on to the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs, where I earned tenure as a professor of women's and ethnic studies, and then went on to become the interim associate vice chancellor for equity, diversity, and inclusion. So I've been doing a lot of work in higher education around what equity, what justice looks like at the systemic level, and dismantling those systems that leave us out often of opportunities and resources that should be available to all of us, regardless of what our zip code is. I met Brother Siron because even in the process of going to school, I never was disconnected from Chicago. We did some organizing in Chicago, as he has always been community centered and doing the labor that is necessary to uplift us, and have done some other work throughout the city, whether I was an adjunct at the Center for Inner City Studies, where I learned at the feet of Brother Conrad Worrell, may he rest in power, and so many others. And for me, it is watching how this district has transitioned to one where Black and Brown folks have been left out of the conversation, have been left out of the opportunities. Historically, this was one of the most populated Black communities in the state. And we see that decline happening. So what do I desire for Illinois' 1st Congressional District? A fresh wind and new life. And that new life is rooted in having access to equitable education opportunities, and not just looking at who is in our classrooms. Absolutely, we are losing teachers by the minute. Look at what's happening in our pandemic and just the toll, the tax that is on our public school teachers. And both my parents retired as public school CPS teachers. And but systemically, the way in which the practice for funding is inequitable, which will continue to produce inequity if we don't root out what the system has designed to be a lack of opportunity for us. Additionally, as we think about being in a pandemic for the last 2 years, the issues in healthcare are not just what we see today. They are rooted deeply in a problem that we have not, that Black women, Black men, Black community has not ever had access or even trust to medicine and medical practice in the United States. So how do we balance the scales in relationship to that? And then opportunity, economic opportunity that looks like entrepreneurship, that looks like a housing market where you aren't able to buy a home for $100,000 because of what's been disinvested in your community, and then have others who don't live in the community to buy these properties, to regentrify these properties, or not even regentrify these properties, but to raise the rent to $2,000. Help me make it make sense, right? So those are some of the things that I want to see for this 1st Congressional District. We just passed nationally an infrastructure bill. What do those dollars look like coming back to Illinois first? And who gets those contracts in Illinois first, right? Because again, we can bring dollars in, and often the positions of those who are dispersing the money, they don't look like us. They don't look like us, but we have contractors. We have Black contractors here in this state. And so how do we make all of these systems equitable for those who are hurting the most?
All right, let me cut there, if you don't mind. So we have a few other people who've gotten on. And so again, to the people that's just joining us, we have 2 candidates that's running to replace Bobby Rush's seat, 1st Congressional District. From what I understand, we have a total now of 6 people running. You're getting a chance right now to hear directly from 2 of the 6 people that's running. And I think this allows you to form your own opinion about these 2 ladies that's speaking right now. So let's get into the dialogue. I want to first start off, and I'm gonna have to now put a time constraint on here because I see the time is moving very fast here. So let's go with families. Give what, and if you are elected, what would you do to strengthen the families in our community? So let's start with you, Stephanie, and let's just go a minute, you guys, if you don't mind. Just shoot it your best shot in a minute, and let's keep going.
Again, right now we are looking for a stability in many of our families throughout this district. And again, it doesn't matter whether you are in Chatham, Hyde Park, Burnside, or in West Roseland, Pullman, or where have you, stability to help strengthen our families. That means access to affordable housing, right? And access to sustainable wages, not just a livable wage, but sustainable wages where one is not paying more than 30% for their housing out of their income, and that they have access to opportunities and jobs, investing in small businesses that are local, as well as protection against what we know is waiting for us outside our doors and sometimes inside our homes. We saw recently that an individual, young man, was in his home and not bothering anybody, and we have violence that is still plaguing our communities. So stability across the board, particularly rooted in economics and opportunity.
All right, perfect. Excellent. All right, it's on you, Cassandra.
Thank you. So I think we can strengthen our families, first of all, by recreating that sense of peace that we've had in our communities the whole time I was growing up here. And in order to do that, we have to do some of the same things that Stephanie has just illuminated for us. We absolutely have to have equitable education. We have to have living wages. We have to have affordable housing. But as a legislator, we are more interested, I would be more interested in making sure that those loans are available for that housing, that the funding is available for those entrepreneurs who are willing to open businesses in our community. I would be more interested in creating opportunities by directing perhaps green jobs back to our area, and then providing the educational resources so that we can train up a workforce within this first congressional district that can then build wind turbines and install solar panels. So things like that.
All right. Thank you. Moving on. I know you guys didn't want to talk about, or you didn't want to talk about violence. Let's talk about people feeling safe. How about that? That's a fair word. What is your vision to make people feel safer in the first congressional district?
As a person who has grown up in America, like everyone else, the whole paradigm about violence, I think, has to be changed. And that paradigm is the news cycle that is constantly putting in our face what bad things are happening. Now, in order to feel safe, you have to have the security that is going on in your community. But at the same time, we have to address the criminal justice system as well, and make sure one of the groundworks is the criminal justice system, where we have to address some of the things like how police are trained and the types of calls that they are called out on. So we depend on police for security, but those police have not been trained to actually interact with our community in a manner that would create a sense of the community working together with the police, as opposed to the police being the punitive end of the criminal justice system.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. A changed paradigm. So it's on you there, Dr. Rose.
Thank you. And I agree with Cassandra, and also want to add, because I don't disagree that we have to train officers differently in how they operate, but we also have to think about where violence emerges from. And most of the time it is rooted in a lack of ability to solve conflict. And so mental health as a central part of healthcare, mental health care being accessible to all in our communities, and also creating a healthcare system that is accessible, affordable, and available to all will begin to get at the root of what causes violence.
Excellent. Education. Stephanie, let's stay with you. Education. What's your plan? What do you see being able to add value to the first congressional district education-wise?
So fortunately, federally, the umbrella for education, outside of redirecting some federal dollars to public schools, really is the way that we can really impact education in this district is abolishing student loan debt, which allows young people the opportunity to think about going to a trade school, to think about going to earn bachelor's degrees and other degrees without that debt ceiling hanging over them. So right now, abolishing and canceling student loan debt is at the forefront of federal legislation that I support.
I want you guys to add this to the education. What do you do about dropouts? Like, if both y'all can answer that. What would you do about dropouts?
Could you repeat
Stephanie,
that, please? Now you were breaking up.
Yeah, dropouts, primarily our Black men that dropped out. Like Stephanie, can you answer that? Then I'm gonna go over to Cassandra.
Sure. Most of those that I know, again, from my experience, my family's experience in public school systems, most of the young men who drop out are, or even young ladies, they don't see the value or the vision and the opportunity that education provides them. Right now, they're struggling economically. And if they can find a way to make money, then that is what they are going to do. When we can shift, as we spoke before, the paradigm of the value that education brings to one's life and the opportunities that exist for those that are completing, as well as having individuals who understand culturally what our young men and women are experiencing in our school systems, then we will have an increased rate.
Okay, shift the values. All right, it's on you there, Attorney Goodrum.
Just so you know, my mother taught special ed at CPS for over 35 years, and my father ended up, after retiring from the Army, teaching ROTC at Lane Tech. So I too am big on education, but in order to first of all, increase the educational opportunities here in the 1st Congressional District, I think we need to make sure that we can make sure there's no longer a digital divide, that there is digital literacy for each and every student, and that's not an option in this day and age. Additionally, I think that in order to make sure we don't have as many dropouts, we also will have to make sure we are meeting the students where they are and can engage them. And that doesn't necessarily mean sitting behind a desk and learning something from a book. They may need internships to make sure that we can keep them engaged, also educate them in a trade or some other type of skill set, and then they will have a means for getting a job and keeping a job. And once again, just as Stephanie said, once they see the value of that education, we have to make it something that they can go ahead and embrace so that they can take it forward and become more
Okay.
better citizens. Yeah.
So now let's switch to economics, the economy being what it is. But I want to make sure we talk about the Black economy. And I understand 40%, 36% of your district is white. So you can speak to that too. But I want to concentrate on the Black economy, if you don't mind. So Cassandra, let's stay with you and give us your thoughts on what can you do, what would you fight for to strengthen Black businesses and create jobs?
Osai, my vision for Black businesses and Black jobs is to bring those green jobs that we've been talking about right here to our community, and to not only bring them in, but to train up the workforce in order to be able to take the jobs. So green jobs are not just, well, let me put it this way. Green jobs have to do with everything, but most importantly, what I want to look at is bringing in perhaps grow houses, taking advantage of this cannabis industry that is about to blow up and make all kinds of money for everybody except for the people who have suffered most under the criminal justice system as it pertains to drug abuse and drug misuse. And I would recommend that we have community-owned dispensaries, hydroponic grow houses, wind turbines, all of these things that not only help our environment, but also are going to help the economics in our community, where we can then, have those dollars circulating right back in our community, making it safer, making it more peaceful.
All right, and you already said you're for reparations, because I was going to say what specifically funding for Black businesses. You're for reparations, so that ties in. All right, it's on you, Dr. Reverend.
I'm so glad you said that, because we talk about reparations, and this is exactly where we can begin to implement, and we don't have to wait for the passage of HR 40, even though I support it, but corporations that have exploited Black communities for centuries, and I do say centuries because many of them are rooted in the slave trade. We calling for federal legislation that requires them to reinvest dollars back into Black incubators and innovation camps, to invest in entrepreneurship for our community. when we think about where we have a Biden that is championing the job rates that have posted for this month, but who was left out are Black women. Those rates did not go down for Black women. We are the least employed across the country. So again, making sure that that we're not just saying reparations theoretically. This is where we can begin to call on those corporations to put money back into Black businesses and also the development of new businesses and incubating for our young people in our communities.
All right. So health, let's switch gears, stay with you, Stephanie. Health. We got COVID, so give us your thoughts on what we can do with this pandemic. But before the pandemic, we were some of those unhealthy statistics, and a lot of from late. Give us your thoughts in the first.
Sure. Healthcare for the country has to be universal in regards to access and affordability. So I am an advocate for Medicare for all and making sure that we do have universal health care, because when we are talking about Black community, we are looking at situations where insulin prices have historically been ridiculous. They've been the cost of rent in some families. So they're making decisions about whether or not they get insulin versus whether or not they pay their rent and have housing. So again, for me, it is addressing the systemic disparities. When we think about Black maternal health, Black women have distrust in the medical care system because the medical care system has never respected our bodies, our pain. And so we have 3 times the rate of maternal death in Black community. And so again, creating those systemic changes around healthcare practices that recognizes the cultural and historical mistrust and abuse that healthcare has had in Black community.
Excellent, excellent. Are you for the shot and the mask? What's your angle on the pandemic with that?
Right now, I want everyone to be as healthy as possible and for them to have the access to the choices that are best for their bodies.
But what about mandates though? Because I think that's one of the key pieces. Like, do you think people should have a choice, or they should be?
I'm sorry, there's someone else speaking over you.
Yeah, I'm about to meet that person. 1 second here. Okay. Yeah, so now the mandates, I think, is the point I wanted to get you.
Again, I think everybody has the right to bodily autonomy. And when we don't have the right to bodily autonomy, then we don't have a democracy. And the failure of our government, the failure of leadership is really addressing why someone might choose not to get vaccinated, or why they don't trust what the vaccine is or is not doing. So I'm for everyone having the choice to make those decisions. And us as leaders doing the work to articulate why the option is good for someone's body, good for someone's life.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So I agree with Stephanie. We definitely it's time for universal health care side. And as the disparities have been shown, of course, through COVID, and even before COVID, we have the highest in our communities have the highest natal death. We have the worst prenatal health care because we've closed all of the birthing centers on the south side of Chicago. We know the inequities that exist, and if we had that universal health care, number one, we would be able to at least have access, equitable access to healthcare, as well as to be able to afford it, of course. But the other part of this is in terms of not just the universal healthcare, but the mandates as to the vaccine. I do believe that we have to take a look as government at what is best for the greatest number of people. And I absolutely am in favor of choice. And I don't think taking away, just today, legislation, or yesterday, legislation was passed where just the healthcare workers are now mandated to have these vaccines. And in looking at that, we're looking at the safety of the people in the workspace. That OSHA came in and said it's not safe for doctors and nurses not to be vaccinated, especially as they are treating people who are bringing that virus directly to them. So, I mean, at some point, government does have to step in, and we have to understand this is not the first time they've done this. Every child, before they go to a public school, has to receive a vaccine. And of course, at some point in time, that vaccine did not exist. And of course, people probably didn't trust it, as there's a whole wing of people that don't trust them now. But at the same time, over time, having the mandate for those vaccines has proven to keep those diseases in control. And I understand these are new vaccines, and people are absolutely entitled to their right to choose and follow the science as they see it. But at the same time, government does have the not just the authority, but they should step in and absolutely do what is best for the greatest number of people that they are taking.
All right, I appreciate that. Senior citizens, our elderly, our elders that's watching, my seniors are watching because I talk to them every Friday. So Cassandra, let's stay with you. What do you have to excite the elders? Why should they vote for you?
Why should they vote for me? Because I come from the same community that you come from. And just as I'm listening to Stephanie over here, I do believe we have common sense that is not so common as we go into these legislative positions. A lot of people I see are just not using their minds. And I think having shared the upbringing of growing up here in Chicago, the elders should know that I am one of the elders. Let's start there. So I am absolutely interested in making sure that the benefits that you have been receiving should absolutely continue. There's no chance that Social Security is going away on my watch, but we need to make sure, once again, if we're increasing the minimum wage, then we have to make sure that the payments that we are making to the people who depend on them, such as Social Security or Medicare, are comparable.
Can add this one thing to your time. Do you believe senior citizens should pay property taxes? And I want Dr. Rose, you to answer the same thing.
Do I believe they should pay property taxes?
Yeah.
As they are able. And I think that's pretty much how it's operating now, is as they are able. It should be based on the income that they have at this point. So, yeah.
Okay, all right. So Dr. Rose, is on you.
I agree in the sense that Social Security is an absolute, that it is something our seniors have invested in throughout their lives, and they did the work. They gave their body to the labor that they were called to, and so they are owed the return on their investment as it relates to Social Security. I think we also need to
I'm muting. We got new people coming on. I'm muting them as we come on. So sorry about that.
I think we also need to reconfigure the calculations of how Social Security is paid out, as you know, the cost of inflation and how that impacts what a senior might bring in. And so because of that, we have to have a graduated property tax system so that it is based on what one is able to pay. And it should at some point level out to where they are no longer paying property taxes, but that they are also not losing the equity in their home, that their homes are not being taken from up under them as they age well into hopefully into years that they are able to give back in other ways to their community with their wisdom, right? That we grow from.
All right, beautiful. So the last one, and then I'm done. I'm 6 minutes over here. Young people. Let's stay with you, Stephanie. Why should young people care about you being the first congressional district congressperson?
They should care because they matter. Their voice, their vote is central to who we become as a nation. And we have not always paid attention to our young people. But when we think about the history of just transformation and democracy in this country, it has been led by young people. We glorify individuals as we should, like the legacy of Reverend Dr. King and others, but they were 19 and 20 leading these movements. So our young people have the ideas and the energy for what the future of our nation becomes. And I want them to know that I stand in the gap. I stand in the gap with them.
But is there anything that you would want to go in legislatively that you see as a problem for young people?
Absolutely. Their sense of security is just as fragile as everyone else's, right? Many of our young people, they're carrying, again, mental health stress. They don't have the security when they walk into their schools. So what we do around education is for them and to make sure that they have the level of protection and security so that they can learn. They're living in food deserts, and again, making sure that they have access to the nutrients to help them want to be in space. And then they're yearning to be, they're not just on Instagram and TikTok for no reason. They have ideas, creative ideas and solutions that they want to be able to translate into businesses so that they're not just seen as laborers for someone else, but they are job creators. And so creating pathways for them to live out their vision for how we create economy, how we sustain our communities. That's the kind of work that I want to invest in our young people.
All right, it's on you there, Attorney Goodrum.
So why should the youth listen to me? Because because I listen to them. Having taught at Chicago State for these last 10 years, it has just been my pleasure to absolutely be engaged with some of the brightest minds. And in some ways, I can see where where my generation and generations before me may have failed them, in that we have not ensured that they have gotten just the basic knowledges that they need to survive and survival skills that they need to survive in this particular world that we are leaving them. So, of course, part of my platform is, of course, eliminating student debt. So my sense of reparations is that all education for people of chattel, who are descendants of chattel slaves, should never have to pay for education again going forward. The second part of it is that they should be entitled to a land grant. So all of these things are going to help our youth because they will be the beneficiaries of it. And finally, I think that we should legalize cannabis and get an equitable share of the entire cannabis industry for the descendants of chattel slaves. And this way we are ensuring that the young people who are growing up right now will be given some of the opportunities that our ancestors have paid for already. Let me just put it that way.
Yep.
I really believe that going forward, we should put in legislation that insists that reparations be paid out as soon as possible. They may not have the whole thing together, but they've been studying it and looking at it for 150 years. And I don't know about you, Si, but have you received any reparations yet? Because I have not. So I am really interested in leaving this world a better place for those people who are coming behind me and making sure that they are prepared to just take over once we have set them up to hit that home run.
All right, so now we're going to get into hardball. Everything you guys said was softball. Now we're going to get to some hardball here. So the floor is open. We have 19 minutes left, you guys. So if anyone, you guys can type in the chat box if you have any questions, and I'll ask the candidates. We'll let both respond. And then in the meantime, I'm going to ask some tougher questions so that you guys can have some more perspective on how these ladies stand on the issues. So when we talk about the Democratic Party, we talk about the Democratic Party here. What's your position on the status quo and the people tending to just go with the flow, even when it's in the counter, it's not in the best interest of the voters in their district? So we can hear from, we'll start with you, Stephanie. Are you afraid to go against your own party if it's in the best interest of your voters?
Absolutely not. I am not afraid. And I believe that that is what Illinoisans in the 1st Congressional District are yearning for, is for someone who recognizes that our democracy is so broken because of the inability to act, the inability to move. And it's happened under the watch of both dominant political parties.
Okay, so you're not afraid. Can you give us one example where you challenged the status quo? It wasn't popular?
Sure. I have been one organizing around abolishing the filibuster before abolishing the filibuster became a household buzzword in the last 3 months because of Biden wanting his agenda pushed. But under even Democratic leadership, the filibuster has been used as a blockade to prevent legislation that would advance Black and Brown communities. I've been
No, that's good. Okay,
I was about to say, because I got a list of others.
All right, Attorney Goodrum.
I have absolutely no problem going against the Democratic Party when they are doing the wrong thing. In case you didn't know, I announced my candidacy on December the 18th of 2021, which was before Congressman Rush had decided to retire. So I stand firmly on the belief that we have to do what is right for our community. We have to put our community first. And that does not necessarily mean being beholden to a Democratic Party. And I think it's just critical at this turn of time, because we've just witnessed an insurrection where people have followed behind somebody who was told lies to the point where our actual democracy has been endangered. And if we can look at that and sit back and not do anything about it, we are going to suffer the consequences of not responding appropriately to take care of the community that still wants peace in their community.
Okay. All right. Now, I don't know if you guys can hear me, but you can type your questions in the chat box right now. I'm looking and it's empty. I have enough questions to go the whole 16 more minutes. So if you guys don't have a question, I got more for them. So that was a good answer. Appreciate that. So now let's talk about Chicago in particular, 3rd largest city in America. And you have the state's attorney, you have the mayor. They got different views on prosecuting first-time offenders versus people getting out on parole. Can both of you guys speak to, if you're elected to, today, what would you do different when it comes to Lori Lightfoot, Kim Foxx not being coordinating together, Tony Preckwinkle on the county level? What do you see yourself having any ability to make more harmony there so we can get more results?
Is that for me, Si?
Both of you guys. So you go
Okay.
first.
Certainly. As I started out by telling you, my whole campaign is for everyone to be on one accord, and one accord is the same thing as what? Peace, right? So in terms of being the Congresswoman from the 1st Congressional District, though, we have to remind all of our elected officials that the reason they are there is not because of their egos, but because they have to put the community first that elected them there and respond to that community appropriately. And in terms of actually trying to heal any rifts between any of our elected officials, I am more than happy to use any restorative justice measures I may have learned and picked up across the time to see if we cannot make all of our elected. And I'm glad you asked that question, because we are at such a time right now here in Chicago where we have Black women and Black men who are holding these positions.
Black women, there's really Black women controlling.
We got Kwame Raoul too. We got Kwame too. So, but I'm just saying, it's unfortunate that they had to air that problem in public, but as they felt necessary to do it, or as it turned out, it was aired in public. I am still of the opinion that we can find peace and make the best decisions for our entire community.
So let me just make sure, then we switch over to Dr. Rose. So you wouldn't take sides. Is that what, that's what I'm trying to get at. You're not gonna go and say, I'm on Lightfoot side, I'm on Fox side. You're gonna stand in the middle, or you're gonna pick a
Oh, no, it's not so much stand in the middle. You have to go with what is right, what is right for the greatest part of the community. And that may not be, for example, Lori Lightfoot closed schools entirely, even though some teachers were willing to teach remotely. Are we doing the best thing for the community when you make a decision like that? Am I supposed to take a side? No, we're supposed to find some type of agreement where the teachers feel safe. Aren't the students down there protesting as we speak because they don't feel safe? When you take a position like that, you have to be able to be big enough to back down, or don't take it in the first place. So, you would just have to look at it.
Okay, all right. It's on you, Dr. Rose.
I'll begin by saying this. Stephen, thank you. I'll begin by saying this, that electeds come and go. Unfortunately, in some of these positions, you have people who have been in decades. But when we think about the mayor's position, the attorney and so forth, they are in rotation. And so they come and go. What my focus is one, building consensus around what is just and what is justice. And secondly, what is my job? What is my role as a federal legislator? And to enforce what will shift our criminal justice system is the expansion of the court. The Supreme Court has been commandeered by conservative power. And so expanding the Supreme Court, as well as expanding federal judges across the country, so that we have judges in position that recognize how to do restorative practice. Also dealing with sentencing laws that are inequitable. That's the work of federal legislators. Many of that having to do around cannabis and the classification of cannabis at the federal level, and structurally making a justice system that is balanced so that Black and Brown individuals in this country are not incarcerated at greater rates because we don't have individuals who won't deal with their white supremacy and racism in the criminal justice system.
Now, but Stephanie, let me get you on record though. So would you sit by and watch in this case, the state's attorney, the mayor, the police force fight over whether the criminals should be released or let out? Would you just look the other way, or would you try to mediate and say something like, come on, you guys, like what's your position on that?
I would not look the other way, because we have community members, we have families that are being harmed in the process. So I have done work in restorative practice. I've done work in consensus building. I'm not beholden to anybody's personality or their character, because like I said, politicians elected, they come and go, but we have to do what is just and right for the families who are suffering, for those, for example, who have brothers, sons, and sisters and cousins who are sitting in jail because they haven't even had a bond hearing yet. Like that is not what justice looks like.
Right. Now, let me ask both of you guys on record with this. So when the census takes place every 10 years, the money follows that location. So when you have Black boys locked up downstate Illinois, that money is counted down there. What's your position on that? Is that right? Is it
utterly ridiculous? It's utterly ridiculous. That money should follow the address of their residency and come back to their communities.
Well, that was a quick answer. What about you, Attorney Goodrum?
It should have never, ever, ever been allowed to happen. But understand that is that criminal justice system where we are providing that economic engine for those little towns where we have put the prisons, and it's akin to taxation without representation. If we're not allowing you to vote, why am I getting a tax dollar that has been contributed to my community while you are just sitting here?
Now we got 9 minutes. This is a stretch, but I want to get you guys on the record with this too. So the lottery, which many say it started with Illinois, it started with Blacks here. So with the lottery, unfortunately, the money is dispersed throughout the whole state. And in other states, they do the same thing regarding education. Do you believe that the money should stay in the zip code where it came from? What's your thoughts on that? And then the second one, as a federal legislator, do you think it should be some federal legislation around lottery? Because Black people, unfortunately, is one of the biggest participants. And if that money was forced to stay, some of it inside our zip codes, we'll see more resources. What do you, let's start with you, Attorney Rose. Stephen, Dr. Rose.
Yes, yes, and yes. Again, it's another testimony to the exploitation of Black pain, Black suffering. Many people are participating in the lottery because they have lived in, unfortunately, generations of poverty, right? So I think that there has to be a reining in of how that exploitation has manifested for decades in this country.
Okay. Attorney Goodrum?
I'm laughing. I absolutely believe that those tax dollars should be left within the community and the zip code in which they were, of course, given. I'm laughing because just today, a student was in class and doing a scratch off. And one of the girls said, I remember those. My grandfather, when he would take me to the store, he would buy me some candy and $1 scratch off so I wouldn't feel left out. This is ingrained in our community. We had numbers runners before there was a legal lottery, right? So we absolutely should be entitled to reap the benefits because it's our money anyway. So it should be.
Okay, so now let's go with this cannabis conversation, because what we see is, and we can go step back with cotton. So after slavery, you still got descendants who were slave owners. They got reparations. They were allowed to keep their property and cotton, and we sharecropped on their property. So it goes to what you was talking about with reparations. But are you afraid that you're going to upset people who didn't have nothing to do with slavery? Those white people who are benefits being descendants. Like, are you worried about stepping on their toes? Both of you guys?
I'm not beholden to anyone, and if their toes need stepping on, so be it. But the reality of it is America has recognized so many other ethnicities. The Asians were in internment camps, and when they came out, they were given reparations. After land was stolen from the Native Americans, we've entered into all kinds of treaties, but they have land that they can go to and call their own. They have casinos that they are getting they have economic engine.
So let me clear that question up then. So what I'm saying, so they should be allowed to keep their land and just give us some land somewhere else, or should we take the land
this is all our land? Let's be very clear. Okay. This is all.
No, I just wanted to make sure, right?
So, but in terms of reparations, I have no problem with asking for everything that I think we are entitled to, which is why I'm very interested in getting a equitable portion of the entire cannabis industry once it becomes federally legal.
So and Stephanie, I'm gonna give you equal time. So what should happen like in Mississippi, where you got people who they're the descendants? So where would they go if that land goes to Black people?
I didn't say it had to be that particular land. It could be something where they give us a national park that we can always go to at all times. I just think there should be a land grant. It would be even better if we were given a land grant via economic engines such as a loan, instead of a loan, a grant to get property. And it should be attached to land. We have to have some type of land that we can say belongs to us.
All right. So Dr. Rose, same tough question there. What's your position? And then the last one is, what if it entails land that the people illegitimately had? What's your thoughts on that?
I am not afraid of stepping on anyone's toes when it comes to doing what is right. I live by the law of to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with thy God. And so if it is unjust, if it is unrighteous, then we have to cry aloud and spare not. And I believe that. When it comes to your question of illegitimately holding on to property, that is the law, right? That you cannot legitimately hold on to something that was illegitimately claimed, right? It does not belong to you. And so if that is the place that we come to in this country, where land has to be ceded so that it is rightfully and equitably dispersed to those who have worked and slept, labored over that land and have an investment in that land, in that property, then I'm absolutely for it.
All right, last question, you guys. Guns. Indiana is going to the Senate now. They say you don't need a permit. You can carry a gun. If the Senate approves it, Indiana won't have to do it. And Tennessee, you don't need a permit. Mississippi. So what are both of you guys' thoughts on, do you want to see or no permits, or are you okay with permits when it comes to guns?
There has to be a universal system when it comes to accessing firearms. I recognize that the Second Amendment is the right of every American, but we also need to the earlier point, think of the public health crisis that we are in when it comes to gun violence prevention. And yes, so I am for universal background checks. I'm also for cross-state universal, a federal operation when it comes to licensing, who is able to access, who is accessing permits.
So that means you're against what Tennessee just did. You're against what Indiana's getting ready to do. They want nothing. You can just walk around with your gun.
And that's why we have 2 houses of Congress.
All right. So now it's on you, Attorney Goodrum.
I would have to say that I am against not having this background checks and so forth, and not having to get licensing for firearms. And to take it a step further, I think it's ineffective, because we're ineffective in the sense that the people who are shooting people here in Chicago are not necessarily the ones who have a concealed carry. We are the people that we're looking at do not have guns that they said, I have been trained to do this type of shooting and it's my gun, right? So legislation is good to a point, but we have to really address a health crisis, a public health crisis, as a public health crisis. And we're looking at people getting shot and bleeding and not saying, where did you get that gun? We're not saying who's responsible for making sure that we can trace that particular gun and get rid of it. How did it get into my community?
All right. So the last one, because we're right here. So let's close it out with your strongest argument, closing argument. Why should the first district vote for you? Let's stay with you, Cassandra. Why should they vote for you? Let's sum up everything you said and close it out.
All right. Thank you so much, Cy. You should vote for me because I will represent you with integrity. I will listen to the problems that I hear from you, and I will take them with me into Congress and try to address them in a way that will benefit the most people right here in our first congressional district. I am here to engage you, to provide equitable education and to educate our constituency, and then to empower us all to move to that very next stage where we are comfortable and peaceful right here in our communities. And I think that's all we've been asking for from any elected official. How can you bring peace back to us so that we can stop talking about these inequalities and inequities in economics and education and healthcare? We want that addressed, and I am here to be your representative in Congress to bring those resources right back to the first congressional district. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you. You and Stephanie were very cordial together. We go toughen it up the next go around. It's on you, Dr. Rose. Closing argument. Why should people vote for you?
If the people of the first district here in Illinois want leadership that is willing to put people over position, then elect Stephanie Rose Spalding. If you are ready for new, fresh, innovative, and beyond the status quo, someone who is ready to do good work and to move this district forward, to breathe new life into this district, then vote Stephanie Rose Spalding. Thank you.
Excellent. So it's petition time now. You guys out getting petitions?
Absolutely.
What I would love to do is invite all of our zip code leaders to get in touch with both of our people here so that you can have follow-up questions. If you guys don't mind giving your contact info, and then invite you guys out closer once you're on the ballot, and then we can have some district conversations about what's happening in each district, and see what you gained since you've been going door to door from hearing from the people. So how do people reach you?
I just left my email address in the chat. It's stephanierose2003@gmail.com. For anyone who wants to get in touch, we can have a conversation, Zoom or in person. Again, just email me. That's stephanierose2003@gmail.com. Thank you, Siren, for this opportunity. Thank you, Cassandra, again, for your presence and for your desire to serve people here in the 1st District.
Thank you. And I am Cassandra Goodrum. That's Goodrum, good and rum, that's true. And it's Goodrum with the number 4@gmail.com. Please do check us out as we grow as candidates. I would greatly appreciate that. And thank you, Stephanie. You have been a pleasure to go. We have more things that are the same than different at this point.
Absolutely. I have also left in the chat. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to add that during this petition season, I just wanted to let everyone know you can sign more than one petition for a Democrat, just to make sure that you still have an option and a choice, and you can make the best choice once you've had an opportunity to learn more about the candidates that are out there. So please help us get onto the ballot so that you can.
Is that accurate though, Attorney Goodrum?
Yes, sir. As long as if you are a voting Democrat, you can sign more than one Democratic ballot. You just can't sign a Democratic petition and then a Republican petition. If you are a voting Democrat, you can sign a Democratic position.
Is that Mike Casper-Lowe?
I'm sorry,
Mike Casper-Lowe?
Look it up.
Again, thank you both so much. I have to run to another call right now. I also put the link in the chat for those who are on Zoom right now of our official launch tomorrow that's happening at 11 o'clock in the West Pullman community, right outside of the West Pullman Park field house. Stephanie Rose Spalding, I appreciate you all, and I am here ready to serve Illinois' 1st District. Have a wonderful